On today's Question of Faith, what were all those high school students doing down at Cleveland Public Auditorium last Wednesday? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I'm Mike Hayes. I'm the Young Adult Ministry Director in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ferentz, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I am Francine Costantini, the Director of Youth Ministry.
And I'm Cari Regan, the Youth Ministry Specialist.
Ooh, full house.
Woo-hoo. Yeah.
Gathered around the table.
Not only is a full house, couple aces here. It ain't you and me, Father.
Well, could be four aces.
I think I'm more like a jack, but that's fine. You could be the king.
Well,
but they're the
I'll
aces.
be the joker.
Very nice. So what were all those high school students doing down at Cleveland Auditorium?
Well, on All Saints' Day, we had a Eucharistic Revival rally and Mass for high school teens in the Diocese of Cleveland.
Nice. So was it about 3,000, right?
About 3,000,
yeah.
Yes, and it was great. We had 19 Catholic high schools represented and 11 Catholic parishes signed up, so it was great.
And this was your vision. I mean, for as long as I've known you, you've talked about doing this.
I've so wanted to gather all of our Catholic high school teens together. Yeah, it was, and it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember 2 years ago we were sitting in a room. Mike was there, Miguel was there at the time, Terry, Francine, and I asked you all, like, what would your dreams be for things? And the one that you had was do a Mass with all the Catholic high schools in the diocese. Took 2 years, but
there you go.
Did it.
Anything worth doing is worth doing well. Doesn't matter how long it takes.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if our listeners don't know, Cleveland Public Auditorium is one of the most historic venues in our whole city.
So cool.
It was built 101 years ago. Elvis Presley has played on that stage, the Beatles, the Supremes, the Rolling Stones, David Bowie.
Prince.
There have been 4 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies there. And last Wednesday, Jesus showed up there in the Eucharist on that same stage, and it was awesome.
Exactly.
Cari, what do you have to say for yourself? You're a big instigator in this endeavor.
I was. Well, and Francine's the one that pitched it to Bishop, and Bishop invited all of the high school teens down to Cleveland Public Auditorium, and during his homily, he was telling them all of those people who have played at the auditorium, and at one point he's like, I don't know if you know any of these people. And he was talking about the older ones, and then he mentioned some new names, and he's like, I don't know any of these names. But that was one of the points that you just said that he was making really clear, is these amazing people, beautiful artists have played here, but today the greatest artist of all time is here, and that's Jesus in the Eucharist. And during this time of Eucharistic revival, it was amazing to be able to gather that many people together for just such a beautiful Mass, and to see the procession. Like, I had chills as they were walking in. I was sitting in the booth with the AV team helping to get everything, all the graphics and lyrics for the Mass, and make sure the shots were what we wanted to and needed to see for the Mass. And as I looked up and the procession started and you just saw everyone walk in, all of the seminarians came and helped out. And as they walked in, just absolute chills. It was such a cool experience. And I have heard from the teens, too, from the Diocesan Youth Advisory Council teens that were there and we talked to right after the event, or even teens this weekend. I was helping with retreat at St. Basil's, and the kids, the teens that went, were saying what an awesome experience it was to be able to be there and see so many other teens their age gathered together around the table of the Lord, celebrating the Eucharist.
That's always the thing, right? It's like, I can remember like the first time I went to a really big Mass, it's like, oh, I'm not the only one. Like, you know, like there are other people like me who are here, and it's really great.
Part of something bigger. And in terms of that procession, too, I live at the seminary and I teach the guys, and they commented that it was cool for them to be part of a procession. They had never done that before. So usually at one of our big, masses here with the bishop, there'll be a few seminarians who serve, but they've never processed in together. They were all wearing their albs and they were identified as such. But I think it was very special for them too, and not just for. I mean, it was for our young people to see our seminarians, but also it was really cool for the seminarians to be seen. Like, wow, this is neat. That was cool. They liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. What was the first big mass you ever went to?
World Youth Day, 1997, in Paris.
In Paris, yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't have diocesan events back then that I remember. I was never part of that. I was like part of Christner's group at Holy Name, so we did things chill on the low key, you know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, World Youth Day 97 blew my mind.
Yeah. What about you, Cari?
Probably the Fest.
Oh, the Fest, sure, yeah.
The Fest.
Right, yeah.
Been to the Fest many times. Been a part of it, been in the choir procession, and the first time just seeing like all of these other Catholics together, gathered for Mass, that was a really awesome, impactful moment.
Yeah. What about you?
I've been to a lot of National Catholic Youth Conferences, and those were, 25,000 teenagers in a football stadium celebrating Mass together is just an incredible experience.
Have those been going on for some time?
NCYC?
How long?
Oh, I don't know. I know I've gone to 6, 7, or 8 of them.
I've gone to 4, so yeah.
Never been. One day I'll go with you. But you're taking 2 bishops and a vocation director this year. You don't need me.
Yeah.
But one year I'll go with you.
Yeah. I think the first one for me was probably Central Park, New York City.
95 with
John Paul II. Yeah.
I remember watching that on TV.
Cool.
Yeah, I was not long out of college. I took 2 of my college friends, and then my pastor actually gave me some extra tickets, and I gave them away to someone, and they had better seats than I did. And I was like, what the heck, man? It's like,
humility.
Come on. Exactly. That's why I said, well, I intentionally took the lower. You go up higher. It's fine. I'll be over here.
One of the cool things that I heard from a few folks about the Mass on Wednesday was that our Catholic high schools, when they get together, almost always get together for the sake of competition, whether it's in sports or academic challenges or something. So here you had 19 of our high schools who are normally in rivalry with each other, and Father Garris was the MC. He was kind of bringing that out. But then they realized as the morning went on, we're here together to be gathered as sons and daughters of the Father, one family in faith, and worshiping together. And that was profound, I think, for many of them. Like, whoa.
I think that was one of the moments for me was the rally towels that you gave out. And the Ignatius High School guys all decided to tie them together and see if they can make a rope around the whole place. But look at how symbolic that was at the end of the day, right? We're all together. We're all tied together as one.
And everyone was helping with that, too. It wasn't the Ignatius guys were tying it, but everyone was throwing their towel in. So, it was a communal event.
It was cool.
Very cool.
It was very fun.
I also loved, you mentioned your youth ministry council. One of your teens, one of our teens, Gianna, got up there and gave a personal testimony, a witness.
Yeah,
she slayed.
Amazing.
Garris was Father Garris was leading at that time, talking on the microphone, but there's a lot of chatter. As soon as that microphone went into her hand, it was like, a peer.
And I have heard from so many different people, like, how impactful that was. And as Gianna was up there talking, I again was in the AV booth with the team from Huey's that helped us with the event and did a phenomenal job.
They did.
But these guys from Huey's, like, they do a lot of big events. They hear a lot of big speakers, things like that. And I hear, quietly in my ear, wow, she's a really good speaker.
Mm-hmm. Is she a teenager?
Yeah, exactly.
Is she 17 or something?
Yeah, she's a senior in high school.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't believe it, that there was a teenager up there. No script, just talking from the heart, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, and the Youth Council teens also, they did some interviews with other teens that were there at the end of the day, and they asked, what was the most impactful part of the day? And this is a sneak peek because these haven't come out yet. But I was listening to them earlier, and one of them said, Gianna's witness touched me so deeply to know that God is with us through everything. She shared a story about after her grandma's passing, she was really just upset with God about taking away the person who had impacted her life, her faith life the most. And as she went on a retreat shortly after her grandmother's passing, she looked around and realized that she had a community of faith that was going to continue to build her up, and that her grandma, even in her passing, was passing on the torch of faith to her, that her faith was now her own, and that she had that responsibility to step into it herself and also bring it forward and share an evangelization with others. And share an evangelization with others she did to 3,000 other people, which is amazing.
I spoke with her after. She made Tole Lege this past summer, so I got to know her there. And she was telling me that she must have done the spiritual gifts inventory with you, or whatever you call that. She goes, Father, do you know what my number one gift is? I said, tell me. She goes, evangelizer. I'm like, oh, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
She slayed.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit's all with her there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and good for Bishop Malesic to be there and see all that too. You know, I think it was really, I think it was important for him to see all of our high school students together and you know, to come together as one.
Yes.
And to be the presider at the Mass. And so it was great.
Right before Mass began, as they were waiting to process in, I was in the back and I said to Bishop Malesic, thank you. Thank you for allowing this to happen. And he said, it was a risk. And I said, I know it was a risk. And he goes, it was a risk, but here we are.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful day.
Our Lady took a big risk when Angel Gabriel appeared, and look what happened. So you got to be willing to take risks in the life of faith, or else you'll just wither away.
And he did, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Just
big
amazing.
risk, big reward.
Mm-hmm. What for you seeing this kind of come into fruition from your vision? What was this like for you, like the whole day at the end of the day?
So there's all sorts of nerves, and there were all sorts of concerns. There were so many people saying, this isn't going to work for this reason and this and there were so many attacks on it that like things last minute were falling through that we thought were set in place, and there was just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And so just watching the Holy Spirit just move all of those obstacles and clear the path was very humbling, because this is not an event that Cari and I could do. No. Like, we did not do this. Like, it was so clear that it was a whole group of people that did it, but the Holy Spirit was the one in charge and doing all the heavy lifting, because we weren't able to do the things that needed to get done, and the Holy Spirit just did, and it was amazing to watch. And then day of, by far my favorite part was the procession. Mm-hmm. Like, watching all of our seminarians come in, and we had 3 bishops there, Bishop Malesic, Bishop Woos, Bishop Amos, and it was just so beautiful. I stood in the back and I just cried the whole procession. It was so beautiful.
That was my favorite part. was seeing you cry at the back. Not the procession, that was pretty cool, but like seeing you be totally moved by this, I was like, there you go. That's the Holy Spirit.
Well, and I think one of the other amazing parts of it was just seeing like all these people I knew gathered together that I both knew were going to be there and like didn't know were going to be there. Like my brother teaches at Benedictine High School, and I knew that they were coming, and they were actually one of the first groups to arrive, and I didn't know that I didn't know when they were going to arrive, didn't know they would be the first. And he walked in, and he walked over to the booth, and he's like, Cari, I'm here. And so it was so cool to like get to experience that with him and watch his students experience that and interact with what was happening on stage, because they were also sitting right by me in the booth. But even a couple times during the Mass, I like looked up, and at one point I looked up, and the St. Basil kids were the ones that were receiving the Eucharist right then. And I'm seeing kids walk past, and I hadn't known exactly who had signed up, but it was amazing to see them there. And then there was another point where the camera was just doing a pan, and I look up, and my college roommate's sister was up on the screen, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's Sarah. Like, I can't believe, I guess I should have known she would be here, but also I can't believe she's here, and I'm so happy that she's here to experience this. For all of those that I knew would be there, and for all those that we didn't know would be there, and for all those who were touched by this experience. It was a really awesome day to see to come together.
Yeah, same. Running into folks who we know from other venues and other arenas, like Kristen Coughlin from Elyria Catholic, Mary Kate Glow Walsh, Brianna Mayak, who's now at Beaumont, Sarah Lanzola. So a lot of our young adults who are actually doing ministry in the schools. It was great to see all of them, and I think it was cool for their students to see that the adults know each other, and it felt like home. It felt great.
Yeah. I was walking down the aisle at one point. I don't remember where I was going, and I heard my name, and I turned, and my husband's best friend from grade school, high school, his daughter is in with her school, and I got to go and say hi to Claire, and like that, it was just so many little opportunities like that to see someone that you know and go give them a hug that you just weren't expecting to be there.
Yeah. And didn't know that you were planning it for her. Like I knew in some respects, or I begged Timmy to make sure that he was on the chaperone list for this event, because I was like, Timmy, you got to come see this. It's going to be so cool. But I didn't know Sarah was going to be there. Right. And it was like, wow, like, this is so great. We got to plan this for Sarah, for Claire, for all of these other people that we knew and didn't know were going to be there.
Your brother teaches at Benedictine, and I didn't recognize him on the way in. He's like, I'm Cari's brother. I'm like, okay. I don't think he had a beard last time I saw him.
Yeah, probably not.
And he came in with Father Thomas.
Yeah.
Who is a former student of mine. So he
really?
did his philosophy at Borromeo. Yeah,
I taught him. So philosophy.
I ran into him at a priest gathering maybe in September, and I think I texted Francine, I'm like, I'm with one of the campus ministers from Benedictine. We're going to get him here. So it was just cool.
And the school, like NDCL and Elyria Catholic, they brought their entire student body, which, like, for high schools don't generally do field trips where they take everyone from the high school somewhere. Right. And it was so beautiful to see them all there.
I can remember being fairly new to Cleveland. I know most of the high schools, but there was one that I hadn't heard of that was Our Lady of the Elms. And so Greg Coogan and I were sitting together at one point, and he said, you know, that's like their whole school that's here. He goes, it's probably the smallest school. I think it is the smallest school.
Not quite, but close. Yeah, my daughter went there.
Yeah, and he said that's clearly 2/3 of their student body, if not their entire student body. And he goes, and they're all here. And he was just so excited that they were there because he lives out that way. So it was fun.
So the closing hymn at Mass, Damascus Worship played the music, and the closing hymn was "O God Beyond All Praising." Our Lady of the Elms, alma mater, is set to the same tune. And the last line of the alma mater is, Our Lady of the Elms. I had some of my Hudson girls went down there. I used to be down there all the time when I was a parish priest. Yeah, it's run by the Dominican sisters, the Akron Dominican sisters. They actually, I was down there last year. They have chickens now and goats on their property, and nice. And the kids get to get the eggs and pet the goats. They have all sorts of other things going on, like high academic things, but they read Laudato Si, and they're taking care of business with goats and chickens too. But yeah, it's a great school. It was wonderful to see them. And then there were a couple high schools who were a little hesitant at first about the idea, but still came and brought folks. So I made sure I made beelines to all their teachers, and thank you for coming, because we didn't talk about this pre-show, but we have to consider, like, is this something that's repeatable?
I would love that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I think at least if we could, and this was the feedback from some of the folks, if this could happen at least like the Olympics every 4 years, so that every high school student could experience it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And it's possible. And now that we've shown it, we say this a lot of time on our floor. Just as God chose Abraham and had the chosen people, and he got that going, and then eventually his son comes to save us, and then the faith gets spread to all nations. The same is true when you're starting something. You're starting a new youth group or a new young adult group. You got to get a concentrated group of people who are all on board. Once you get that going, then the thing can spread. So we showed that this is possible, and now you learn, you tweak, and you keep moving forward. But
yeah, the logistics of the event were hard, and we learned a lot. Christy Cavanis did an amazing job handling all of that. We had over 70 school buses. Like there was just a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, and there were so many people that made it happen. And Cari and I are gonna sit down over the next 3-4 weeks and with all the big planners and just sit down and go, okay, what did we learn? What did we do well? What can we do differently? Just in case, maybe, the possibility of a future event.
And there are many reasons not to do these sorts of events, and you could come up with a ton. But you got to figure out where the Lord's calling us, and then you follow his call. And if he wants it to happen, then you respond and you move forward in faith, and do not be afraid.
Well, because you never know what comes of it. One of our youth council students who goes to NDCL, who brought their whole school, said that he met with the principal after the fact, and they were just talking about the event. And NDCL also took pictures of the event, and they put it into their school newsletter, and just really kept the excitement going of all of them coming there. But he shared with us that the principal said she had so many students who came up to her and thanked her for taking them to the event. And one student, even who isn't Catholic, expressed that she gained a deep desire to receive the Eucharist after the event. And I mean, if there's anything that's going to give you chills, anything that made the redoing in quite a few documents many times, and making the details of the event come together, it's wow, like this impacted deeply that someone wants to receive Jesus in the Eucharist. So the point of the day came across.
Yeah, my communion station was up in the mezzanine or in the balcony, and Kayla Gill wound up providentially being my guide, my assistant, to take me up there. And she stayed there and talked with the principal after the Mass was done. And he had told her, had I known it was going to be this good, I certainly would have brought my entire school. So, we're still earning trust of the people in the diocese. Right. We're a new team, so we're doing our best. But
and even in this building, we generally don't do things cross floors sometimes, right. But this kind of took the building, kind of took everybody around to kind of get this together. And
well, the bishop said, stop the siloing, so we're stopping the siloing.
That's right.
And our keynote speaker that morning, Chica Anyanwu, she was so amazing. And again, just like when Gianna was speaking, there was one point I was standing against the wall with Father Damien because he was going to go up and talk after her. And I just looked around, and every eye was just zeroed in on Chica, and you could have heard a pin drop as she is sharing from her heart. And it was beautiful. I
remember the exact moment because she was talking about, yes, we have had scandals and there have been things that have been troubling in the church and all this, but Jesus remains at the center. And that's when Francine goes, pins drop, or something like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I hear it. I mean, everyone was locked in. It was very cool.
Well, both of you, thank you for your hard work on this. This was really, really great. And I was so glad to see your vision come to fruition. And I caught you afterwards and said, so, you've been talking about this since I've known you, and I'm glad that you got to do it. So.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for your help. And thanks again to Bishop Malesic for his belief in it and his go-ahead, because, it really wouldn't have been...
We had
possible without
almost 100 volunteers working that day, so awesome. It took an army. It was great.
Oh, let me say one more thing, too, about the volunteers, because this was a really important part of the day. The welcoming. So once the young people got through the lobby, they were welcomed by our seminarians, cheering them on, and a lot of the young people were like, I like that they knew they knew our school, and they were happy to see us.
And religious women. We had a number of religious women there, too.
Yeah, a sister of Notre Dame, a couple of Kilimanjaro sisters, and a few Mercedarians, And to see those faces and have people welcome you in and be excited to have you there. I did hear, too, from some of the high school kids that they thought this event was going to be boring and it would suck, and they were just kind of dragged by their school, and they're like, it was awesome. So that's always good, too.
It's
better that than to be the opposite way. This was going to be awesome. Totally.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Lower expectations,
It's a high compliment from high schoolers.
So hopefully we'll up the expectations for diocesan events. So.
Exactly. All right, so look, our readings for the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Gospels from Matthew this weekend, and I'll just read a little bit here. The kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones, when taking their lamps, brought no oil with them, but the wise brought flasks of oil with their lamps. Since the bridegroom was long delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. I'll leave you hanging there.
The virgins are all trimming their wicks. Have you ever heard that song by Johnny Cash?
No.
Oh yeah, it's a song that he wrote from dreams that he had, and he's quoting this particular gospel passage in there. It's called "The Man Comes Around." Put it in the show note. You'd know it to hear.
I know the song now. Yeah.
But yeah, the oil is your love of God and it's your faith, and as much as you want to share it, it has to be one's own. Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm going. But how about you,
cool.
You guys?
Yeah, I mean, I even think just a little bit further down, because when I was a kid, I didn't understand this gospel whatsoever. Because
you're supposed to share.
Yeah, exactly. Like sharing.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't they share? Like, my mom taught me to share. Why wouldn't they? I had 2 younger brothers. I had to share. Like, why aren't they sharing their oil? But it's you being ready, and no one except yourself can make you ready to receive Jesus unless you give him the space to do that in your heart. And I think that is even something we saw last week. Teens were ready to receive Jesus in their hearts, and were prepared with open hearts. Maybe not oil today, but it's being ready for what's coming.
The thing that I always point out in this gospel is they all fell asleep. You know, it wasn't. Some of you always have a misnomer that says, "Well, those virgins fell asleep," and that's why I said, "No. They all fell asleep. But when they were awakened, one was ready and one was not, because they didn't prepare ahead of time."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's sort of the point. Be prepared. Don't, even if you fall asleep, if you're prepared, you'll be okay."
We keep talking about how, like, that old cliche, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself on the airplane before you can help others. Like, you need to have you cannot give from your cup. You can only give from the overflow. I think St. Bernard of Clairvaux said something along those lines. And so you have to make sure you're filled. You have to make sure you're in deep relationship with the Lord, and then you give from that overflow and help others to learn how to fill their lamps.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. So anyway, thanks for all your hard work once again, and thanks for joining us here. We'll have this and a whole lot more next time on Question of Faith.